lovelies. Happy Pride Month to each and every one of you. I hope it's been a beautiful month for you and your world, whether you are queer yourself in one way or another or not. I know I have been having a phenomenal Pride this year, and it's just been really lovely. As always, I'm Riley, and this is Sex with Everyone. And today I am interviewing Cece in Glendale, Arizona. Cece is genderqueer, sexually queer, queer, and talks a lot about their Mormon upbringing and how they actually escaped to the military to get more freedom, which is not a statement you hear very often. And Cece is 23 years old, and they talk about what it's like dating older people. They currently have a girlfriend that's in their 50s, and we just kind of get into it. So stay tuned because it's a pretty excellent conversation from start to finish. So please join me as I talk about sex with Cece. Hey Cece.
Hi.
I'm super stoked that we're doing this. When we got together the other day and you were like immediately just like unloaded your story, I was just like, I want to record this so bad.
Oh yeah, gay trauma dump, you know.
So I guess it would be cool to just kind of start with like your upbringing and go from there.
Oh God, upbringing. That's a fun story.
Because
Yes.
our childhood's so informed of what our path is going to be. So
No, definitely. Yeah. So single mother, as you know. She had husbands throughout, but didn't really stay. So kind of in and out, that type of life. And then of course being raised in the Mormon cult. That was super fun, which is also white supremacist, which they don't talk about, of course, obviously, but
they never do.
No, of course not. It's not like they're out here like, oh yeah, we're a cult, come join us,
Right.
But yeah, so that was my upbringing. Thankfully, I was able to get out of that at 17 years old.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Got out of that and, figured it out along the way, what I did and didn't believe, but, that's how it went.
How do you think that being raised in the Mormon cult influenced your sexuality, or what was like do you have any like memories of note or anything throughout that time of?
So my childhood was actually very gay, considering,
Really?
yeah, considering the fact that I was raised in a cult where it's like being gay is a sin. And of course, and again, I told you my mother, I basically technically came out to her as a freshman, right? Mm-hmm. To where I came to her, I was crying, didn't know what to do. I was telling her like puberty was hitting, right? It was like that peak moment. Yeah. And I was like, I'm looking at women's chests and their butts and I don't know what's going on. And then she decided to respond with, oh yeah, everybody looks at those. Everybody has that. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, everybody's attracted to every gender. You just only marry the opposite gender and you don't talk about it. And she even told me, she was like, yeah, these are some magazines I look at sometimes. And I was like, oh.
Were they like...
No, they were just like sports models, stuff like that. Like,
really?
Yeah, like it wasn't...
Wow.
It wasn't like porn
It wasn't
or anything.
full on Playboy or anything.
Yeah, but it was still like...
Sports Illustrated is spicy stuff.
It was like swimsuit wear and everything else.
She straight up was like, here's some spank bank material.
Yeah, maybe.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I went through that. And so like growing up, and I think it's so funny because I was a lot like my older sister.
Yeah.
And my older sister came out later in life as a full-on lesbian. So looking back at it, we were like, that was gay. At the time, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember in PT, and this was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
In 6th grade, there was an upstairs and downstairs. And the upstairs was just a room. And so me and just a couple other girls would go upstairs and we'd play this game where we sat in a circle and you would close your eyes and then kiss someone. Someone would kiss you, right? Yeah. And you had to guess who was kissing you.
Yeah.
But the fun part was it was only females.
Right.
It was just a bunch of females kissing other females for like 30 minutes.
How old were you?
That was in 6th grade. So I would have been like 11 or 12.
That's hilarious.
So I feel like I did a lot of gay stuff that looking back is gay. At the time, I'm like, yeah, it's normal. Everybody does this.
Yeah. And then you found out about your mom later, right? Didn't she?
Yeah, she came out after me though.
Oh, okay.
So that was an odd time because, of course, when my style started coming out, she called me a dyke, all that stuff. Because she was like, it's the weirdest situation, I think, because she saw a lot of me in her. Because the oddest part is before she joined the cult, she was already out as a bisexual female. And then she joined it and was basically, like, repressing it.
Yeah.
And it was the oddest thing. So after all of that, and of course, me and her, we've moved past that since, like, mended that relationship. And, apologies, tears, that whole thing. But after that, we, she actually came out and she is dating a female now. So it's amazing. Don't even think, like, I never thought I would see her this far.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
I love that, like, when you were a kid, she was like, yeah, it's totally normal to look at chicks. It's just, it's just what you do.
Yep.
And you just don't talk about it. And then it turns out, no, she's just gay too.
Yeah, exactly. Both just gay. And I think it's funny now because a lot of her other kids are gay. Like my younger siblings, my older sibling, of course.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
And of course there's been scientific studies, it's genetic and everything else. And I brought that up to her and she was like, wait, is that why everybody, like all you kids are gay? Because so far the only straight one is my younger brother. Yeah. And he seems straight, but I think he's asexual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not super heteronormative either.
No,
so,
it's not. Yeah.
That's crazy. And you have how many siblings?
So with her, I have 5 other siblings. Or 6. One of those. I have a lot of siblings.
Out of 5 siblings, 1 is maybe straightish.
Yes, basically.
That is surprising, though. Like, I don't think I've ever met, like, a whole family of queers like that before.
Well, and also, I think the important thing to know is I feel like she was also attracted to queer individuals. Because it's very important to note that her husbands that she had kids with are not straight, regardless of what they said. Yeah.
Really?
So, because my sister's father, he was not a great parent. He's definitely one of those people that never should have been a parent.
Yeah.
And he was TMI with her all the time. Basically told her as a kid that he loved sucking dick. So I was like, not straight.
Yeah. But still Mormon?
He wasn't Mormon, no. That was before she joined the cult. Because my mother had her when she was 17. Yeah. So she was still like child, back then.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, all the men she got with was not straight. So I was like, okay, kind of checks out.
Yeah. Do you think that in any way, even though you were raised Mormon and in a very like anti-gay space, but your family was very queer accepting and everything, do you think that influenced your
They weren't queer
self?
Accepting at all.
They were queer, they were queer, but not queer accepting?
Yes, basically.
Dang.
It's like being gay and homophobic at the same time. And it's like,
that's hard.
How does that work?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of it was repressed.
Yeah.
Because, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the childhood my younger siblings are now getting is very different than childhood I grew up with. Because we were known that it was like a sin. Like, I remember when the gay laws passed, where I believe it was in 2014 that gay couples could get married. My mother was distraught, like not okay with it at all.
Yeah, right.
So she's actually come a very long way in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I would say so. Dating a woman, yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like the main thing that honestly triggered that, especially in my family, was when me and my older sister both kind of like cut her off because we were like, this is who we are. And if you can't accept that, then we're not going to be in your life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of like a little light bulb switch for her. So, yeah.
That's awesome, though, that she was able to have that moment.
Oh,
not just for you guys and to retain the relationship with you guys, but for herself and her relationship with herself.
Oh, it's amazing. She's like even been like doing therapy and antidepressants and everything. And I'm just, so proud of her.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have told me before you're
Yes, pansexual.
Yeah, cool.
Yes.
And how do you identify for your gender?
So my gender, what is gender, right?
What is it exactly?
What is gender? Yeah, my current pronouns are they and she.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what fits me most.
Yeah.
Because there was a time, though, when I was going by, like, all the pronouns. Because I was like, I don't really know what I am. But I could tell, like, I wasn't, like, female, like, girl, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I love sometimes wearing skirts and dresses and looking nice. And then other times I dress, like, super masculine, everything else. So it was kind of like, you know, back and forth, and I never really had an issue with it, but I definitely feel like they just kind of fits me best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel a lot more on the NB side than the feminine side, you know?
NB is an interesting terminology. I'm still, like, kind of wrapping my head around, like, the differences between what, like, NB is versus gender fluid or gender queer.
Yeah.
Like, because they're all, like, this is very similar, but I guess I'm still, like, wrapping my head around, like, what the specific differences are between
Each one.
Yes. Yeah. Because I know for myself, I identify as gender fluid because it's constantly changing.
Oh, yes.
Depending on my mood or the day or whatever, you know. And so constantly changing with where I vibe, I guess. But NB is, I don't know, like, if you don't mind, like, explaining a little bit more of, like, what NB means to you, I guess.
Well, so NB, as it means to me, and as the way I was always taught it, is more so a lack of gender. To where it's kind of, you don't really have a gender role, you don't really have a gender image, it's just like, you're just you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And so you can have whatever style. So you can be female, feminine, or masculine presenting, but not necessarily in any gender role.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like a lot of the times androgyny is correlated with NB, but it's not, like, always that.
Yeah.
Because I've met some super masculine NBs, and I've also met some super feminine NB, but at the same time, it's still like, yeah, no, I'm NB, not girl, boy, whatever.
Right. I love that shit. It's just endlessly fascinating to me because, like, there's just so many variations of these various, like, categories that we can have, you know, or orientations that we can have, and they're just, I mean, there's endless.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I was explaining it to one of my coworkers because, as I told you, my work is very conservative space, so not as understanding about it.
Yeah.
But I was explaining it to one of my coworkers who was actually open to listening about it, and I was like, you have to understand, it's just like with our chromosomes. We have so many chromosomes, so many everything else in us that define us as an individual. And as you can see, nobody looks alike.
Right.
Like, you look alike, kind of like your parents, but nobody looks the same.
Right.
And it's kind of the same way with genders. Nobody's gender is the same. You kind of put yourself in a category to where you're similar to all these people, but everyone's gender is so unique and individualized.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do they react to that?
They actually, and I had to explain it more so in terms of masculine, like, you know, some guys grow more facial hair than other guys, and some girls grow facial hair, some girls grow no facial hair, you know, and some girls' body shapes are super feminine, and others are super masculine. And I really had to get into detail with it before they were actually kind of, like, understanding it in a way. Yeah. Because, you know, they were taught in such a way to where it was genitals. Genitals is what matters. And it's like, no.
No. Yeah, well, and also, of course, it's worth saying explicitly, like, sex and gender are two different things as well.
Oh, yes,
right,
100%. And they get so gender many people and sex confused.
Yeah, so many people just think that gender is sex and sex is, like, they're interchangeable. It's like, no.
Because as far as I'm aware, I know of the three sexes, the female, male, and intersex. So.
Yeah, and there's, like, just a lot of different variations of intersex as well.
Oh, yes, so many.
So it's,
Yeah, intersex is kind of like that main, like, little category, but it's like an umbrella category to say.
Yeah, kind of like trans.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You were telling me before how you were engaged at a pretty young age.
Oh, God. Okay, so it wasn't technically an engagement.
Oh, okay.
But it was set to be married, basically.
It's kind of an engagement.
Both of our families, like, knew each other and everything else. And it was, I guess, at that age at that time. So I was 16. He was 18, right? And he was meant to go on a mission and come back as a 20-year-old, right? And then by the time he got back, I would have been 18. And then it would have been like, bam, marriage, you know, like, that's how it's done. So just the normal Mormon stuff, you know, because that happens.
Is that normal?
That's very normal,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
They love to send their males on a mission because males hold the priesthood and, like, you know, because they're the authority, right? And then the women are supposed to, like, you know, sit at home, wait for them, and that type thing. It's a very misogynistic way of life. But, yeah, so I was set to be married, and then I think it's so funny because it wasn't even the situation that made me kind of run away, because I left home at 17. Like, I left the state, everything, right? Like, I left at 17. So I basically ended up, like, left him at the altar in a way. But, it was his kiss. He kissed me. First kiss ever, by the way. Like, first, like, real mouth-to-mouth kiss. Other than, like, you know, like, pecks.
Sure.
Yeah, chewed my tongue, chewed my lips, pulled my tongue out of I was not into it at all. Yeah. Worst kiss to date. I have never had a worse kiss than that. And that was when I was like, I need to get out of this. Yeah. And literally, I think I was trying to pull away from him, right? And he, like, had the back of my head in a grip. And against his mouth, like, against his lips, I was like, I need to go. It was just so awkward. Did not enjoy it. First kiss.
Yeah, that's...
Yes.
A bit much. So... Your first kiss was at 17?
I would have been 16.
16? Okay.
16, okay. Yeah.
And so when you were escaping at 17, you were escaping the church, you were escaping your family, you were escaping the betrothal.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, I didn't realize that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
It was more so, I need to get away from this. And, like, I knew I wanted to get away from him specifically. He wasn't, like, he wasn't a bad person for a cult member, I guess I should say. But he also, like, it wasn't anything specifically he did. It was just the whole situation and where my life was at the time. Yeah. And that was when I went and up and joined the military, because it was the quickest, easiest way to get stability and an escape route immediately. Yeah.
How did he react to you leaving?
I have no idea. Oh, he had left for his mission at that point.
So he came back and you were gone.
Basically, yes.
And he never contacted you after that?
I kind of changed all my information.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I ended up deleting my social medias with all my actual names and everything. Like, of course I have social media now, but it's not under, like, my legal name. Yeah. So, whole different concept. Yeah, it doesn't have my number or anything. I mean, I guess technically, I feel like the way, if you ever wanted to contact me, he would have to get in contact with my mother through me, because she still lives in that area, but I don't think she would ever give it to him.
Right. Dang. And then you were in the military. What was that like?
That was a big change. And I think it's... I think it's funny, though, because in comparison to how I was raised, it had so much more freedom. Yeah. And of course, and some people are like, that's crazy. The military's so strict. I'm like, really? It felt like freedom to me. Like, I felt like I was going wild. I was suddenly allowed to wear what I wanted to wear, eat what I wanted to eat, be who I was, you know, in a very different format and way. But I will say the first couple years were definitely super hard, because I definitely felt that homesickness, everything else. Because, you know, it's so odd, especially because I didn't have, like, a good, loving relationship with my family at that time, but you still feel that emotional attachment. So even though it was a toxic, negative love, I still, like, craved it in a certain capacity. Yeah.
And you got in the military, I'm assuming at 18.
17, actually.
Can you get in at 17?
Yes, you can get in at 17.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I don't know why I always thought it was 18 or up.
Yeah, well, thankfully, my mother was not raised in the cult, so she didn't have any quarrels with it. Yeah. Because, of course, in the cult, like, females are not supposed to, like, work a masculine job, you know? Like, that type of thing. So she signed away. Like, because you have to get parents' permission, basically, for 17.
Okay.
Yeah. And so she signed away, and I was like, yes, I'm out. Because, like, and her main thing was she wanted me to be self-sufficient in life. So she saw it as a great thing, regardless of how the cult saw it.
Yeah. And what was it like being 17 in the military? I mean, from, like, a sexual perspective, of course, like, you're still, like, coming into your own. You're still figuring out who the fuck you are. You're still figuring, I mean, and at that point, I mean, you've only mentioned your first kiss, but, like, I don't know if you'd done anything else by that point. Like,
no, I really didn't. I wasn't really interested in sex, honestly. And I feel like a lot of it was because I still thought I was straight at that time. So I was still trying to be with men, specifically. And at that point, I still was in the mindset of like, oh, need to find a husband, need to do this, everything else, which me still being unmarried, clearly that did not work out. Thank God. But I wasn't really interested in sex because I wasn't like, I don't know if it was because I wasn't taught to be interested in sex or whatnot, but the whole idea of it honestly was off-putting for a while.
Oh, really?
Yes. Why? It sounded honestly messy. It sounded messy.
Because it is, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, body fluids do what? That's insane.
It's only messy if you're doing it right.
Yeah, no. And I was like, he's going to put what, where?
Yeah.
Ew. Yeah. Disgusting. Yeah. Right. So I was off put for a while. And that was one thing I really enjoyed is I really did not force myself or make myself have sex sooner than I felt like I needed it, you know?
That's awesome. That's super awesome.
I really put it off for a while because I had one boyfriend at 18 now. So I was in the military. He was also in the military and he definitely wanted it, right? And I was still under the mindset of, I'm not going to have sex till I'm married, you know, like that type thing.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we were making out and he was on top of me and he stood up and he was wearing like shorts, right? He had a boner.
Sure.
And I freaked out and hit it. I smacked it. Oh, it was so bad and awkward. I felt so bad. Like, my entire face was inflamed. I didn't know what was going on. Oh. Yeah. Was not ready for it.
Yeah, I'm sure he did not love that.
No, we didn't last too much longer after that.
Yeah. That's funny.
So.
How was, like, the general disposition around being female-bodied in a fairly masculine space like that?
So for my first couple years in the military, I actually had a medical job, one of the medical military jobs, and the majority of medical jobs are female.
Oh.
So I didn't really have any discrimination based off my sex then.
Yeah, cool.
So I've had it now, because now I'm in a masculine job, but honestly, I have lived my entire life in spite, so it kind of like pushes me to go farther, because it's like, oh, you think I can't do this? Watch and learn.
Yeah, that's cool.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm at right now with that, you know, military stuff.
Yeah. How long were you in for?
I am in for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you still?
Still, yes.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, still in a contract.
So the job that you have now is like a military contract?
Yes.
Position? Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it is military right now. Because military, that's the thing, I feel like civilian-wise, they don't know anything about military. They assume it's all just like, yeah, you carry guns around, right? And it's like, no. So yeah, still, it's a pretty normal 9-to-5 job. It's not really anything like extreme or exotic.
Yeah.
So, stressful, yes, though. 100%.
How so?
Oh, well, you have, so of course, civilian jobs, and I work money management, right? So, civilian-wise, that's already got a fairly lot of rules and regulations. Well, just imagine that times 10, because the military likes to make everything that much more complicated. There's just like so much paperwork, so many things you have to do. I have to document every transaction in like 3 different places. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And it can get really messy really fast. Like one fuck up and suddenly you're doing like 20 things.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And what's it been like? I mean, since coming out as NB, like, have you had any pushback or weird experiences in regards to that, specifically being in the military?
I would say not really. Nobody asked for my pronouns.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't really given it that much, not being in the military. But, of course, as you know, I have a lovely shaved head here. So I've been turned around before, and then people will be like, hey, sir! And I turn around, and they're like, anyway.
You're like, no, sir's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'll go with it. I don't care. So, yeah, but no, I haven't really had any pushback because I'm not just like offering it up like that.
Yeah.
If people do ask my pronouns, I do give it. It's just that doesn't happen in
few and far between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, fair enough. Do you find that like restricting at all?
Not really.
Yeah.
My job is very separate from my personal life, and I keep it like that on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I feel like too much mix and mash, and it just gets an entire mess. So, like, a lot of my coworkers, I would honestly never hang out with on the outside just because of, like, who they are and who I am as an individual. I feel like we would not like each other.
Yeah.
But I trust them to get the job done at the end of the day, and that's what matters.
That's all that matters, yeah.
Yep.
I know that I know some things. So I know that you are newish. I actually don't know how new, but you're poly and kinky, and in those realms. What prompted you finding those things?
I've been of course raised in a monogamous household, right? Yes.
Well, actually,
to be monogamous.
Some Mormons are polygamous, right?
That's a very specific type of Mormon, and it's almost like a sub-cult within a cult, almost.
Okay.
And
interesting.
With the polyamory, it is only the men can be polyamorous.
Yeah, that's what polygamous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like the woman can only have one man, but the man can have as many wives as he wants. So that's like a FLDS. Yeah. So it doesn't happen. It just, not the one I was raised in, thank God. But I remember they taught us in heaven, basically, like, if a man has a wife and she dies, she's still his wife, but he can marry another wife and she will also be his wife. And I went, oh, well, that's nice. So the woman, if their husband dies, they can get another husband, right? And they went, no, you can only have one husband. I was like, why? Like, what do you mean?
Equality does not exist here. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no. Physical body, everything else, no. Yeah. I was not polyamorous. So I was raised very monogamous. Yeah. I was taught I needed to find out one person that would fit me perfectly, like a puzzle piece and everything. And I tried a couple monogamous relationships. Like, I definitely did. Mm-hmm. I definitely committed myself to them fully, and I just always felt trapped. I always felt like I was in a cage, like they were just suppressing me, everything else. And they weren't. Like, they were great partners, but I just couldn't enjoy the relationship because I felt like I could never, like, look at another human being a certain way. Like, I felt like I was just restricting myself. Yeah. So, and of course now, I'm great in a poly relationship.
How long have you been poly now?
So I've been poly for about 2 years now.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So still kind of baby poly.
How did you discover it?
So I discovered it actually quite by accident. It was one of my exes. Yeah. We met on Tinder, of all things. And he was looking for a girlfriend, and he had a wife. And I met the wife and him same time, and the wife and me, we got on fine. Wasn't an issue. He even had a kid. Loved that baby girl. And, we started dating. I didn't have an issue with the fact he had a wife at all. Like, I've never been, like, a super jealous partner, Yeah. And so, like, sometimes he'd be like, hey, I'm with my wife right now, And I'd be like, cool, great, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, it wasn't really a big thing for me. Right. Especially because it was almost like whenever me and his wife talked, it was like, we both love this person. Isn't it amazing? Like, it was like we already had commonalities. Yeah.
And so they were poly, and then that's your introduction to poly.
Yeah. So they were poly. And I was with them for quite a while. When we broke up, though, I did try and go back to being monogamous. Mm-hmm. Just because I met someone I really liked and they were monogamous. And I was like, oh, well, I really like you, so maybe for you I can do it. And it just did not work out at all. The exact same stuff happened.
Yeah, turns out poly. Poly or nothing.
Yup. So now whenever I find anyone, I always let them know, like, just so you know, I am poly. Do have other relationships. Yeah. So, because if they can't get over that, then I can't, like, be with them in that way. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people absolutely can do that, but for me, I'm the same way. I'm like, you're at the very minimum, you have to accept that I'm poly. You don't necessarily have to be poly, but I have to be poly, right? Like, I'm down to, like, attempt that, though rarely have I seen that actually work in a mono-poly relationship. But yeah, I mean, it's just essential to who it's an orientation, for me. Like, some people it's a choice, and for me it's an orientation.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely feel the same way in my regard as well. Yeah. Because I can't be monogamous. It doesn't work for me. I have too much love to give.
Exactly. Well, and also you kind of touched on it earlier as well, like the idea that there's one puzzle piece in the world that's going to fit me in my weirdly shaped puzzle piece. Like, I don't think that's true. I don't, like, I have so many different facets, and everyone does, we're all these beautifully cut gems or raw gems or whatever. And we all have these different facets to ourselves. And like for some people, some of our facets kind of line up, and I can enjoy puzzles and nerding out about neuroscience with one person. And then with somebody else, I can go to cons and go out dancing and go do all these other things. And, you know, it doesn't have to be the same person for all of my interests.
Yeah.
And time and time again, I've been in even poly relationships, but like having, you know, a primary partner where some of my interests fall by the wayside because they're not into that thing. Yep. And when the relationship ends, I'm like, oh, right, I do like this. You know, like I don't want to give that up again, you know? And
no, I feel like polying is freeing because you get to be who you are in all your aspects. There's nothing to suppress or leave behind in a certain way. And I also love it also because of the child rearing aspect of it, because my girlfriend's boyfriend has kids, right? And these kids have so many parents and parental figures because both the mom and the dad are poly. They're divorced now, but they're both poly still. And so no matter what, these kids always have parents, always have someone to watch them, everything else. And it literally is taking a village to raise them. Yeah. And I just love these kids so much. So
yeah, it's beautiful. And like, not to mention the extended financial resources that these kids now have so they can do even more things. And then they also have more parental figures that themselves have all of these different interests and professions that they can be resources to these kids. Like they've done studies on poly families and there's so few negatives. You know, it's like, it's so positive, overwhelmingly positive for the children to have a well-rounded, well-funded upbringing, you know?
No, I feel like one of the few negatives would maybe be confusion. To where it's like, wait, who's this person to me? It's like, I'm your aunt. It's fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because they really, you know, and that's the thing is their parents really don't talk about their sex lives at all. They'll just be like, oh, this is someone I'm dating, you know? And that's it. Like, you know, it's not like you're like, oh yeah, me and this person are together. It was like, not like that at all. Yeah. So when I met them, you know, I was just like, oh, I'm such and such. Like, I didn't go into detail with certain relationship aspects, but they also understand their parents are poly and have multiple loves. And they're like, totally chill with it.
That's awesome. I love that. Yep. Is it weird for you at all to kind of be suddenly like in a relationship that comes with children? I mean, I know you just got done talking about how awesome it is, but like, is it also kind of weird for you at all? Like,
I think one of the main aspects that became weird, I mean, there was a bit of an adjustment period, you know, where I had to get used to like, oh, there's kids here, you know, like, cause I myself don't have my own children.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing I really had to get used to was the fact that my girlfriend's boyfriend has a couple kids my age. And I was like, are they okay with this? Like, that's insane. So that was a little awkward right there. But yeah, they just don't care. Like, it's a very simple, like, all right, whatever. Like, you know.
Is that weird for you, though?
It was at first. Yeah. Now I'm pretty adjusted to it.
Okay.
Now I'm pretty chill with it, you know, because like me and them, like, it's more so we have like a kind of like bro relationship, whatever, like friendly relationship. Yeah. Not really parental guardian, but you know, so it's chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have also in the past dated somebody who had a kid close to my age when I was a lot younger. And it was a thing that I was totally fine and like adjusted to. No big deal. Like we literally went to the same high school. At one point in time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And, but like, it was no big deal for me, but it was my family that like could not get past that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
That's
like,
one thing is my family does not know that I'm poly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever come out to them?
I don't.
In that way?
I don't think I will.
Yeah.
Cause they're very monogamous.
Yeah.
And they don't know I'm poly, kinky, any of that. Like, I am very, like, you know, and they know I'm dating someone, but I never really give them, like, too much information just in case I'm talking about, like, someone else other than, like, my main partner.
Yeah.
So that way, no matter who I'm talking about, it just sounds like my partner, you know? They're like, okay, chill. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I don't think I'll ever come out, especially due to certain age differences. You know, my family would not be okay with that.
Really?
At all. Yeah.
They can be okay with a lot of things, but that's hitting a wall.
Yeah. You know, if it's a woman, they're like, chill. It's like, if she's older than me, no, how dare you?
Isn't that funny?
certain prejudices.
Yeah.
So sex.
So sex.
Sex.
Yeah, about that though.
Yeah. I'm assuming you wanted me to talk about my first very lovely time.
Oh, if you want to, yeah.
Yeah. It was awkward, as all virgins' times are.
Yeah.
It was double awkward because both of us were a virgin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this was my first ever, like, actual girlfriend. Yeah. And I remember, like, our first day, I was panicking. Especially being raised the way I was. Because I was, like, I got, like, dressed up in my, like, nicest clothes at the time. And it was, like, a coffee shop. We were going to do a coffee shop date. And I brought a puzzle. So we could do a puzzle together. So that way any lulls in the conversation.
Yeah, you're active.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect, right? So, but I remember I arrived earlier than her, and I didn't even drink coffee back then. I just knew coffee shops were a good place to, like, meet people. I was like, yes, coffee shops. Yeah. And then when she got there, she's like, so what do you want to drink? I was like, do they have hot chocolate? Not coffee at all.
That's okay. I don't drink coffee either. So.
Yeah, no. Chai drinker over here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that was how we met. And we had been dating for a good while. At that point, and we did all the, like, little cute first, holding hands, first little kisses, everything, because they had been out a lot longer than I had, and they, like, knew, like, full-on lesbian, everything, right? But yeah, we had started talking about sex and everything, like, both being kind of interested in it, talking about what we wanted to do to each other, and then, like, once we got down and dirty with it, it was like, anyway, this is cool.
Love this.
Did not know what to do. Kind of like got down there, was like, this is crazy. It especially threw me off because her downstairs looked different than mine.
Oh, really? How so?
Her lips, her inner lips were out.
Yeah.
And mine are not. And so I just assumed everybody else looked the same as me. Like, like...
Right, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I just had those assumptions because I had also never seen another, like, naked female per se.
Yeah.
Like, I had like showers with other women, at the gym, whatever, but it's not like I'm like, you're looking down there. Yeah. Whole different concept than when you're actually there and you're like, oh shit, this is different.
Yeah.
So she looked different than me, and so that threw me off for a loop when I first got down there. And it was just like both of us being awkward versions, not being used to, like, the messiness of it and everything. Yeah. Of course, now I'll shove my entire face in there. I'm good.
That's cool though. I mean, that sounds really special to be able to share that awkwardness with somebody else because it's also their first time. Like,
oh yeah, and that was
cool.
One thing I talked about. I was like, because it was like my first love basically, and I was like, I love you. I really want to give you my first time. You know?
Yeah, that's special.
Yeah.
How old were you?
19.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple years after the 17, it finally, like, awakened.
Do you ever, like, reflect on, like, if I had stayed and not left at 17, like, where I would be right now?
Yes, definitely. I definitely reflect. Because it's a very scary thought. Yeah. It's definitely not one up to where it's like, man, I wish. It's more so like, thank God I got out. Yeah. Because, I mean, I could see myself there, but I definitely feel like sooner or later I would have figured it out. I would have figured it out, and it would have been a much bigger blowout had I been married and had kids, because that would have been insanely different, because that's basically what happened to my older sister. Yeah. She was married, had kids in the cult, mind you, and they actually left the cult together, her and her husband at the time, but it was still entirely different, like, when she figured out she was gay and everything, so it involves a lot more people when you have a family, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, children always make that exponentially more difficult.
Yes. Thankfully,
to
her kids are fine now. Like,
that's good.
They all got through it. Everything's fine. But at the time, it was a very stressful time in their life, especially because they didn't understand, like, why are mom and dad getting a divorce? Like, why are mom and dad like this? They didn't fully comprehend what was going on.
Yeah, and you also, like, almost definitely would end up having kids relatively quickly after getting married, because you told me earlier today that Mormons don't believe in using contraception at all. Yeah. Because it's a sin?
Yes.
That just blows my mind. Using condoms is a sin.
It was basically just, if the Lord is meant to give you a baby, he will give you a baby. Now, it's not to say it wasn't done. There were some females who, like, after, like, 5 kids decide, what, I want to get my tubes tied because they're tired of kids, It definitely did happen that way.
I'm tired.
Well, you know how, because the men would work and the woman would stay at home all day with the kids, and it was the woman's job to rear the children. The men didn't actually have to be there for the child's life.
Right.
So the woman, yes, were tired. They were like, fuck this. It's kind of an interesting relationship when you see a mother hate her own kids in a certain way. So I feel like there was a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
The mothers had towards the children. Yeah. So, and it does suck. It's really sad because, of course, the kids didn't ask for it at all.
Yeah. Did you experience that with your own mother growing up?
A bit, yeah. She did. I mean, because she was so young. She was a very young mother, because I told you she had my older sister when she was 17.
Oh.
So she was a very young mother. So she never really got to have like a young adult or like teenage life, because of the fact she was pregnant. Like, she was pregnant, had kids immediately. So there was a bit of resentment there I felt like she had growing up. I feel like it was subconscious. I don't think she consciously was like, I hate my kids, you know? But subconsciously, I feel like it was there because she was a very absent mother when I was growing up. But a lot of that was also due to the fact that she's not a loving mother, first of all, very logic-minded, everything else, and she was a working mother. So she was out doing stuff. She couldn't exactly be there to raise us. So, very different upbringing.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. I just think it's just so beautiful that, like, your relationship with her has changed so drastically, and you guys are so much closer now and able to...
It took a lot of therapy, you know, took a lot of work, but we did it. Yeah, and I think the main thing is you never really stop craving your mother's love and affection. Mm-hmm. And so with that, it was like, I wanted it, but I knew I would never get it the way I wanted it. So it's definitely been like a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier that you had met the first poly boyfriend on Tinder.
Tinder.
Tell me about being on these dating apps, because I know nothing about it.
Oh, it is horrible. It is so bad. So basically, I started with Tinder, right? Back when I was 18 or 17. Mm-hmm. Like, I started dating, you know, as soon as I got out, because that was just what I was taught to do. Like, you just date, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, once you match with somebody, you send a hey, and they send a hey back. And then the conversation never progresses from there. The majority of the time.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So, first of all, you're like, and it's very, there's no like energy on it. You just see their picture. It's very shallow of a way of meeting and dating people, you know? You see their picture, and from that, you're like, would I fuck you? And that's basically like the question.
Yeah.
And so I did not enjoy it. And then, of course, a lot of people, even myself at times, would have multiple dating apps on their phone, because you're like trying to find someone. Mm-hmm. But then majority of the time, these conversations either never go somewhere, or when they do, you meet them in person and then it's just like dead. And you're like, well, this is different. Like, you were a lot more interactive over text messages.
Oh, no.
So.
Are you still on these apps?
Absolutely not, no.
Oh, okay. How long did they last?
So I was on those apps, I want to say, for a couple of years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like I always knew when a relationship wasn't going to work, because I wouldn't delete the app. It would just stay right there on my phone. You're like, I'll be back to you, don't worry. Not too soon.
That's funny. So what made you like ultimately delete it then?
So,
because you're poly, so you can, continuously date.
I can.
Yeah.
What made me ultimately delete it, and this was like the big turnaround, was I met my last ex on it, the one who I tried to be monogamous for. Mm. And they were so toxic of an individual. And I don't know if they're like that with every partner, or if we just brought out the worst in each other, you know? Because I don't like to say that like, oh, that person's horrible, just like downright, because it might have just been my experience with them, you know? But this person was so insecure and so in control and everything else. And it was probably one of my most trapped relationships. And I hated it because over text, you meet these people, right? And you're like, oh, we get on this and this. Like, we are matching on everything. And then you meet them in person, and that's not who, like, they are, you know, in a sense. Yeah. And you don't match. And I just got so tired of putting all this time and effort into these people for it to go nowhere, was the basicness of it. And that was when I deleted all social media apps and actually started going out to social events, which is how I met my current girlfriend, which is amazing because we met and it was just like sparks immediately. Aww. Like instantly we found out we were both kinky and in the goth community and we were like, let's go do things together. And like ever since then we just started hanging out together and then it developed so naturally into a relationship. And I've just met so many other people out in the community and going out to these social events to where it's like, yeah, no, I could definitely date you, be with you, everything else. And I don't have to worry about, are they going to like me? Do they find me attractive? You know, are we going to have matching energies? Because I already know all of that information, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
So it's an entirely different experience.
Yeah. So you're just like, I'd rather just meet people out in the wild and see how it goes from
basically.
There.
Yeah. Well,
I'm very much the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially at the social events because all you're doing there is sitting and talking. So you're getting to know these people like right off the bat. Yeah. And it's not considered like awkward or anything else because it's like, everybody's trying to like, you know, get who they are out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's awkward all around, but yeah, we're all still like on the same page of like common goal and we can just figure it out right now.
Yes.
Instead of doing this back and forth, texting, you know, whatever for however long until you decide to meet.
And I didn't like it because you can only really text that one person at a time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not like it would be a group text or anything. Like, no, it was you text one person, right? Like back and forth. Whereas
you're only they limit you to only texting one person.
Oh no, you can text multiple people.
Oh.
But
I see.
Yeah. Is when you go to these social events, sometimes you won't like anybody in a romantic sense, but you still meet like great people.
Yeah, I can still make friends.
Exactly. Yeah. So entire different experience. Yeah. And of course, a lot of those friendships actually last. Yeah. Because you have the same interests already. You go to the same places. Yeah. So it's like, hey, I just saw you. Yeah. So entire different experience.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned before that, I don't know if you identify as like introverted, but socially awkward sometimes. Yes. How do you like overcome that? Especially being out in like a public space and trying to be a social butterfly when you don't inherently feel like a social butterfly.
So I am definitely an introvert. Yeah. And I feel like one of my main things, especially when going to a new place, is I will stand there, make myself a part of a group, and then wait for an extrovert to adopt me. Because once an extrovert adopts you, they're like, what's your name? What's your interest? And all of a sudden, they're like telling everybody there about you. They're like, this is a person here. They're great, you know? Once an extrovert adopts you, you're good to go.
That's funny. So you just stand there hoping for somebody to like...
Yeah, basically. Every once in a while, someone will finally like talk to you and everything else. And then you're like, okay, I'm being addressed. I can talk now.
Yeah.
But once I get comfortable in a group, that's when I actually start like, you know, showing who I am more, everything else.
It is that like initial part that seems to be the hardest for anybody. So bad. Yeah, extroverts or introverts alike. Like that's always the most awkward. How do I get over this hump?
Yeah, I will say the one bad thing about the social events is sometimes there's just creepy people there.
Yeah.
Everyone you go to, there's always like that one person to where you're like, okay.
Gonna avoid you for the rest of the night. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
but that's true. I mean, on Tinder and shit too. At least in person, you can identify them more quickly and know where to avoid. Right? Yes. Like, I feel like
that's true. Whereas Tinder, it's like, let's meet one-on-one. It's like, let's meet public space first.
Yeah. Like the creepers are harder to identify.
Very
online.
Much so. Yeah. Because they can wear a mask and it's much easier for them to do so. And yeah, very different. Oh, the kink community is amazing. I did want to talk about the body positivity there.
Yes.
I love the body positivity within the kink community.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of nudity there, but not all of it is sexual, is one of the main things. Because a lot of it could be just for a scene. Like, I have one partner that I play with on the regular to where, like, we see each other naked all the time, but it's not sexual. It's just to be able to get to our bodies, like the skin-to-skin contact, everything else. Like, it's a very different relationship than something you could have if you were monogamous, for instance. Like, because I'm sure monogamous people are not super thrilled if you're rubbing your naked body on someone else. But I just love how you see every different body shape there, of every different type, you know? And it's like, yeah, we all have normal bodies. And, you know, definitely brought my self-confidence up a bit because I'm like, oh, I am a sexy fox over here.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it sucks when the only naked body you see is like the porno models, you know? And like you're used, like just skinny waist, big boobs, big butt. And you're like, man, why don't I have that? Yeah. And then you see everyone else and you're like, okay, nobody has that. That's great.
Yeah.
Or even like with the men with the fucking like 12-inch dicks there. It's like, yeah, that is not realistic at all.
For sure. Yeah, I absolutely agree. There seems to be, especially in our culture, no real public nudity spaces.
Yes.
Other than like kink.
Right.
Which is in a lot of ways still based around sexuality, even though it's not necessarily sex always happening or scenes aren't necessarily about sex at all. Even.
It still has sexual
it's still sexuality. Yeah, sexuality
Yeah.
is still like an aspect, but we have like no non-sexual public nudity sort of spaces the way that a lot of other cultures do. Back in Atlanta, one of my favorite places to go for a period of time was a Korean spa. It's fucking awesome, and they are separated by sex, but they're the wet areas where there was like pools and hot tubs and wet saunas and whatever, where everyone was naked and you were expected to be naked, and kids were there and adults were there, and it was just so cool to see like normal people in a non-sexual space. But I can just be like, it's so cool to see that kids can be raised going to those kinds of spaces so they're not so influenced by the photoshopped perfection that we see in literally all of our fucking media. It's so important to have spaces like that, and we don't. Americans don't, at least.
I think there was a guy I met to where he actually talked about it because he was raised outside of America, and in his culture, it was very normal to bathe with your family naked. So all his family was naked. And he talked about how, like, with his wife now, he loves her so much, and she's an American, right? Mm-hmm. And he was confused on, like, why she felt so, like, insecure of her body, because he was like, what do you mean? It's beautiful. Like, you're gorgeous, everything else. Yeah. And a lot of it he contributes to his upbringing because he never expected a female to look like the models in the magazines. Like, he always expected them to look like his mother or sisters or anyone else who was a female looked like, you know? So for him, it was a very different way of seeing the world than we see it here.
Yeah. But it's good. I mean, it does make me happy though every time I hear of somebody going into the kink world and that's an aspect that they bring back for themselves of like,
very big.
This is what normal naked people look like. Oh, and it turns out it's not a big deal. And it turns out they're also fucking hot as shit. You know, holy shit. Yeah. Almost I didn't even realize, because this one prescription of what beauty, quote unquote beauty is like so heavy handed in our culture. Subconsciously, we retain these ideas, and it's like, no, fuck that. Being able to turn that back around and be like, oh, that also means I'm hot as shit too. Turns out.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing is I've always been attracted to like voluptuous women. Mm-hmm. Like, I have always loved just heavier set people. I don't know why. Like, I just find the body shape attractive, everything else, and I'm like, I want to grab it. I'm like ready there, right? And I always thought it was funny because even though I was attracted to that, I myself could never be that. And it was like the oddest like parallel that I had. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like gaining my happy relationship 20, and I'm like okay with it because my woman still is insanely attracted to me and everything else. And I'm like, yay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you're stoked about next, specifically, of course, in your sexuality or whatever? Is there anything that you haven't done that you want to do?
So this is going to be super sappy of me. But I think the main thing I am so stoked about next to my life is the fact that I get to have my body change and my metabolism slow down and to gain my wrinkles and to still have my people around me love me throughout it all. To where they don't want just the youthful beauty and like the perky breasts and everything else. They want me for who I am as an individual and find my body attractive throughout the changes. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's awesome. You're right. That's super sappy. But I love it.
I think we hit it all.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving all of us a rundown of your beautiful life. I'm just stoked that you're here right now and loving everything you're doing so fucking hard and just excited to continue onward.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm just super thankful and grateful for all the people that around me that have supported me until here. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Isn't CC so great? I really loved their energy a lot. I found it really fascinating how it seems like almost the entirety of their family is queer in one way or another. I couldn't get over how when they came out to their mother was like, "Oh yeah, sweetie, it's totally normal to look at women like that, but that doesn't mean anything. And here's some material that I enjoy looking at." And then it turns out that, she's also queer and just repressing it in herself. The human experience is endlessly fascinating, and that is just yet another example. Beautiful, beautiful example of it. Thank you again, Cece, for being so beautiful and so open-hearted and sharing with us your experiences. Next episode, I'll be talking with Buddy, and we get into what his experience is like being in the swinger lifestyle in Arizona. So stick around for that in a couple weeks. So as always, if you really love this podcast and really want more posts and more stories and more pictures and more and more and more, you can, my friends. I have been curating it for quite some time now, and there is a ton of content over there that you can enjoy to your heart's content. If you want to check it out, it's patreon.com/sexwitheveryone. So go check it out. And once again, happy Pride to each and every one of you. Remember that while Pride did start as a riot, and that's important to remember, and important to hold in your heart this month, it is also a celebration, and I love celebrating each and every one of you, including myself. So I hope you guys delight in yourselves and in one another this month, and really remember who we are and that we're here. I love you all so much, and as always, stay awesome, friends.